The whispers are over, the smiles are gone, and the gloves? Completely off. Because what's erupting right now isn't just a lawsuit, it's a Hollywood betrayal with royal aftershocks. And at the center of the explosion stand two women who were never supposed to be enemies. Until now. This is the moment when Gayle King allegedly decided she had been pushed too far. This is the moment when Meghan Markle found herself accused not of victimhood, but of strategic destruction. $25 million. That's the price now attached to what Gayle King claims was a calculated, cold, and devastating takedown of her biggest career project. A project that vanished almost overnight after Meghan Markle allegedly entered the picture. And make no mistake, this story isn't about hurt feelings. It's about power, influence, and what allegedly happens when two queens want the same throne. Behind closed boardrooms, far away from cameras and charity galas, Gayle King had been quietly building something massive. Not gossip show massive, legacy massive. A multi-platform media empire in the making. Primetime television, streaming documentaries, a wellness partnership dripping in prestige and global reach. 7 figures on the table, a multi-year future mapped out, contracts ready, executives aligned, momentum unstoppable, or so it seemed. Because according to this explosive legal filing, the moment Meghan Markle allegedly learned just how big this project was, the temperature changed. Suddenly, doors that had been wide open began to creak shut. Phone calls stopped getting returned, emails went cold, meetings were postponed, then canceled, then erased entirely. And Gayle King was left standing in the wreckage, staring at a project that didn't just stall, it collapsed. The lawsuit claims this wasn't coincidence. It wasn't market forces. It wasn't creative differences. It was interference. According to the complaint, Meghan allegedly moved fast and quietly, reaching into elite corporate circles using intermediaries and direct lines, whispering doubts, raising concerns, and reframing Gayle King not as an asset, but as a liability. The message, allegedly delivered behind velvet curtains? Gayle King wouldn't travel globally. Gayle King wouldn't resonate overseas. Gayle King didn't fit the new ethos. And just like that, the network walked away. The sponsor followed. 7 figures evaporated. Years of work, gone. One executive message, quoted in the lawsuit, reportedly cut deeper than all the rest. Alignment with Miss King does not fit our renewed ethos of global reconciliation. Global reconciliation. Those two words now echo like a dagger, because Gayle King's legal team says they weren't corporate jargon, they were code. Code for outside pressure. Code for royal adjacent influence. Code for a duchess who allegedly decided there wasn't room for two powerful women in the same philanthropic media lane. And here's where the story turns sharp. Because Gayle King wasn't just the face of the project, she was the executive producer, the architect, the cornerstone. This wasn't a side hustle. It was positioned to be the defining chapter of her career, a capstone that would elevate her beyond journalism into permanent cultural authority. The lawsuit says when it all imploded, the damage wasn't just financial, it was reputational. In an industry that whispers louder than it shouts, a collapsed deal of that magnitude leaves a stain. Executives start asking questions, brands hesitate, invitations slow. And Gayle King, a woman known for restraint, loyalty, and decades of professionalism, allegedly absorbed the hidden silence. Until now. Because this filing doesn't read like disappointment. It reads like revenge served cold. The accusations are blunt, intentional interference, malicious persuasion, economic sabotage. Not competition, elimination. The lawsuit paints a picture of Meghan Markle not as a fellow creator carving her own lane, but as someone who allegedly saw a rival and chose to erase her path entirely. And if that's true, the implications ripple far beyond one failed project. Because Gayle King isn't just any media figure. She's connected, she's respected, she's protected, which means this lawsuit isn't just about money, it's about exposure. If this case advances, discovery becomes the real battlefield. Emails, texts, call logs, quiet meetings, friendly check-ins that may suddenly look very different under oath. The possibility of Meghan Markle being deposed, questioned line by line, influence by influence, is no longer unthinkable. It's procedural. And the Sussex brand? It's staring down its most dangerous narrative shift yet. Because for years, Meghan's story has been framed around survival, surviving the palace, the press, the cruelty of institutions. But this lawsuit flips the script completely. It doesn't allege defense, it alleges offense. It doesn't paint her as besieged, it paints her as strategic. And Hollywood is watching closely. Because if Gayle King, of all people, claimed she was undermined, then every executive, every sponsor, every celebrity collaborator is quietly recalculating. Trust is currency in elite circles. And this case suggests that proximity might come with risk. Meanwhile, Meghan's response has been swift and surgical. A single-line dismissal, baseless, meritless, media exploitation, full vindication promised. But denials don't stop subpoenas. And confidence doesn't erase paper trails. What started as a glamorous collision of influence has now become something darker, a legal standoff that threatens to crack open the curated image of post-royal benevolence and expose what really happens when power is exercised behind closed doors. And this is only the beginning. Because once Gayle King's lawsuit hit the legal system, it didn't just accuse Meghan Markle of wrecking one project, it reframed her entire post-royal story, dragging years of whispered concerns, burned bridges, and sudden disappearances into one blistering narrative. And suddenly, people weren't asking, is this lawsuit real? They were asking something far more dangerous. Is this finally the pattern in black and white? Behind the scenes, Hollywood doesn't gasp, it calculates. And insiders didn't need long to connect the dots. The King lawsuit didn't arrive in a vacuum. It landed on soil already cracked with rumor. Former collaborators who vanished without explanation. Executives who once praised Meghan publicly, then quietly distanced themselves. Deals announced with thunder, then fading into awkward silence. This lawsuit didn't invent suspicion. It validated it. Because what Gayle King is alleging isn't impulsive behavior or emotional fallout. It's methodical, strategic, almost surgical. The claim is simple but devastating when Meghan Markle allegedly perceives competition, not hostility, not betrayal, just competition. She neutralizes it. Not loudly, not publicly, but efficiently. And that accusation hits differently because of who Gayle King is. This isn't a junior producer crying foul. This isn't a disgruntled former employee hiding behind anonymity. This is a woman with decades of industry capital, with friends in boardrooms, newsrooms, and billion-dollar brand suites. A woman who understands exactly how reputations are built and destroyed. Which raises a question no one can stop asking. Why would Gayle King risk everything by filing this lawsuit unless she was absolutely certain? Because lawsuits like this don't just expose the defendant, they expose the plaintiff too. Discovery cuts both ways. Every email, every pitch, every private conversation Gayle King ever had about this project could be pulled into the light. You don't take that risk unless you believe the evidence tells a story that can't be explained away. And the story the filing tells is brutal. It alleges that Meghan's influence wasn't passive. It wasn't opinion. It wasn't sharing concerns. It was allegedly targeted persuasion, directed at exactly the people whose withdrawal would collapse the entire structure. Network executives, brand CEOs, decision makers with veto power. And once they moved, the dominoes fell instantly. This wasn't a slow unraveling. It was sudden, terminal, as if a switch had been flipped. And here's where the emotional undercurrent turns icy. Because Gayle King wasn't just losing money, she was losing standing. In elite media culture, projects don't simply fail. They're allowed to fail when the gatekeepers decide someone is no longer safe to bet on. And according to the lawsuit, Meghan Markle allegedly made Gayle King look like a risk. That accusation alone carries consequences that echo for years. Suddenly, the why behind so many vanished Sussex partnerships feels sharper. Spotify. Netflix projects delayed, reshaped, or quietly shelved. Staff turnover at levels that made recruiters whisper. Advisors rotating in and out, and never back in again. Individually, each incident was explainable. Together, they start to resemble a gravity well. The lawsuit doesn't accuse Meghan of being difficult. It accuses her of being transactional, of treating relationships not as bonds, but as assets, valuable until they aren't, cooperative until they compete. And if that's the operating logic, then Gayle King wasn't collateral damage. She was a target. What makes this particularly explosive is the social proximity. These weren't strangers. They shared circles, events, allies, mutual benefactors. There was trust, or at least the assumption of it, which is why the alleged interference feels, to many observers, less like rivalry and more like betrayal. Because in Hollywood's unwritten code, you can compete, you can even undercut, but you don't weaponize influence against someone who believes you're operating in good faith. If this case proceeds, that code goes on trial too. And the ripple effects are already visible. Executives are reportedly revisiting old communications. Lawyers are reviewing clauses in Sussex-adjacent deals with fresh eyes. Brands that once prized the royal halo are now weighing the litigation shadow that comes with it. Because one thing terrifies corporations more than bad press: unpredictable partners. The irony is suffocating. For years, Meghan Markle's narrative has centered on being misunderstood, mischaracterized, mistreated, on being the subject of whispers rather than the source of them. But this lawsuit flips the lens entirely. It alleges she wasn't reacting to power, she was wielding it. And power, once exposed, doesn't charm, it intimidates. The most devastating aspect of Gayle King's filing isn't the dollar amount. It's the implication that this wasn't an anomaly, it was an example. A moment when the curtain slipped just enough for the machinery underneath to be glimpsed. And that's why the palace, though officially distant, is reportedly uneasy. Because this isn't just about Meghan, the private citizen. It's about the lingering weight of a title, a status that still opens doors and allegedly closes them for others. If those doors were used to sabotage rather than uplift, the reputational damage doesn't stop at Montecito. It bleeds backward. It reframes history. It invites reevaluation. Which brings us to the most chilling possibility of all. What if Gayle King isn't the last? What if this lawsuit gives permission for others to speak, to file, to challenge the idea that every fractured relationship was someone else's fault? Hollywood has a long memory, and once the silence breaks, it rarely reseals. The court will decide whether Gayle King can prove her claims. Evidence will matter, timelines will be dissected, motives will be argued. But in the court of public perception, the damage is already unfolding in real time. Because for the first time, Meghan Markle isn't defending against tabloids or commentators or anonymous critics. She's defending against a peer, a respected one, a powerful one with receipts, and nothing left to lose. And that changes everything. This lawsuit doesn't just threaten money, it threatens mythology. It asks the question no brand, no duchess, no celebrity can outrun forever. What if the story you've been telling isn't the whole truth? And once that question is asked, truly asked, there is no going back. The fallout has only begun.